Commissioner DeMond? Here. Commissioner Conroy?
Here.
Commissioner Evans?
Here.
And Commissioner Hernandez?
Present.
All here.
Can we move to the...
Yes, we can move to approval of the minutes.
Anybody have any comments on the minutes?
I move we approve the Planning Commission minutes dated May 10th, 2016.
Second.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Minutes approved.
Bruce, with the planning manager's report, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple items that may be of interest to the Planning Commission. On June 21st, the City Council will consider an appointment for Commissioner Roman. As you know, former Commissioner Tom Roman resigned from the Planning Commission, and they will be looking at doing another appointment at that meeting. And at a staff level, we're also working to coordinate some token of our appreciation and thanks for Commissioner Roman for his time and service with the Planning Commission. So that's targeted for the June 21st council meeting. We don't have any items for your June 28th meeting, so we're going to recommend canceling the June 28th Planning Commission meeting. Then there is a General Plan Advisory Committee meeting where they'll be considering the General Plan, Local Coastal Program, Land Use Plan relative to the coastal resources and coastal hazards elements of the Local Coastal Program, the draft Local Coastal Program. Then for your next meeting on July 12th, that would be our first meeting, presumably with full Planning Commission. We'll have the election of the chair and vice chair of the Planning Commission. And then we will have at least one item. We're proposing 2904 Naples. It's a new single-family residence. And also in the front end of July, we're targeting 2 community development director hearings, one for a new single-family residence at 345 Belleville Boulevard, and the other at 408 Roosevelt Road, in addition at 408 Roosevelt. And then for your next meeting on July 26th, we've only got one item that we're targeting so far, and that's a new single-family residence, possibly scheduled for July 26th at 32 Jenna Lane. And then just as an informational item, those amendments that we worked on with the R2 duplex residence zone and large family daycare are targeted for the August 6th City Council meeting for introduction at that meeting. While I'm also here, I'd also like to point out that we issued an emergency permit waiver for the Kuna Unified School District for the temporary placement of 14 portable classrooms on the campus grass area and a couple more over by the basketball courts. We followed the procedures and sent notifications to the Coastal Commission, and the director approved that. And there's a memo in your packet that includes a copy of that temporary emergency permit. I don't have anything else to add. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions?
I just have one comment to make. Currently the library is closed, and the reference materials that we've had for the general plan are no longer there right now. They're at City Hall. So if anyone needs general plan information, it continues to be at City Hall. Their space is limited at the Shoreline Station where they'll open July 5th. So we're going to just center everything at City Hall. So if there's anyone who needs any information, to contact Jill Ekus or myself for special arrangements. Otherwise, 8:30 to 5, Monday through Friday, the materials will be available. And they're on the website, Plan HMB website.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So the next item on the agenda is public comment. This is for items that are not on the agenda. So if you have general comments that you'd like to make and share with all of us, now is your time to fill out one of these green sheets and bring it to us. I think all of the projects here that have comments are related to the track. So if you do have comments about the track as well, you can go ahead and submit those comments, and when that agenda item comes up, we will take your comments. One other item, this is a public meeting. You know, people may have very strong opinions that you disagree with, so please let people have their chance to speak, and don't do anything your children would be embarrassed about tomorrow morning. So thank you all for that. So with that said, the next item on the agenda, we have a public hearing item, PDP 16013.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Planning Commission. This item involves the, the remodel of an existing residence at 403 San Benito Street and roof expansion of the existing roof that's the flat roof portion of the existing house, as well as construction of a new attached deck in the rear of the house. This slide gives you an idea of the aerial photo, the site and surrounding area, the green indicating the property lines, the red line indicating where the work would take place. And this slide also indicates the Coastal Commission appeals jurisdiction associated with Arroyo Leon Creek and then along the rear property line. The permits requested are a coastal development permit, architectural review, as well as a setback variance requested for the roof expansion within the flat portion of the existing house. This slide shows both the existing and proposed site plans. The lines are a bit faint, but the red box indicates the street-facing side setback along Mill Street, and you can notice the changes that are proposed within the street-facing side setback. The most noticeable change associated with the project is along the north elevation, along the Mill Street side. And you can notice on this slide, the top indicates the existing condition of the house as seen from Mill Street, and then the bottom slide indicates what the proposed work associated with the project. The exterior design of the remodeled house includes the roof expansion, as I indicated earlier, and that new roof design would be compatible with the existing house. Also on the lower portion of it, you see the proposed attached deck. Here's the floor plan, both the existing on the left and proposed on the right. Again, a little difficult to see, but the project does include a complete remodel of the house and demolishing the existing flat portion of the house, flat roof portion of the house. A few key issues to be aware of for the Planning Commission. As indicated earlier, the site is adjacent to an environmentally sensitive habitat area, but the work would take place more than 100 feet away from the edge of the creek. Additionally, a large barn is located in between where the work would take place and the environmentally sensitive habitat area. With that said, staff doesn't see that there would be any potential impact to the resources associated with the ESHA. Another key issue to be aware of, the house itself is over 50 years old, built in 1902, I believe. With that, under the California Environmental Quality Act, staff did require that the applicant prepare a historic architectural report indicating documenting the historic integrity of the house, the level of significance associated with the house. The applicant did provide that, and the architectural historian concluded that the house doesn't have any significant historic value to it, and that the proposed project would not create any significant impact to the house as a historic resource. The last key issue that the Planning Commission should note is the requested setback variance. That the applicant is requesting to expand a legal non-conforming condition of the existing house. That said, staff is supportive of the variance and recommends approval based on the shape of the lot, as well as the existence of the creek along the rear property line, and the location of the existing footprint. With that said, staff can make the findings associated with the variance. And our recommendation is approval based on the project complying with, you know, as I said, the variance setback, the single-family design guidelines, and in conformance with the California Environmental Quality Act. I'd be happy to answer any questions. The applicant and owner is also here to answer any questions that the Planning Commission may have.
Yeah, Scott, I have a
Yes.
couple questions. On page 7 of the staff report, in the table detailing the zoning requirements versus proposed, I think there's an error, but I just want to make sure that I'm reading it right. The minimum street setback for the attached deck, the zoning requirements note that it's 20% of the building length. It's showing the proposed is 16 feet, but that's 6 feet, correct? The way I'm looking at the plans? The back deck is 6 feet off of the property line, not
So
6 feet.
it's actually if you're within the zoning ordinance, it allows for 20% of the width of the deck, or 20% of the building wall that faces Mill Street
Right.
is the length of the deck that can encroach into the setback, and they're exceeding that by let's see, excuse me, interior design.
The way I'm looking at it is, I think if I'm reading the.
Yeah, they're exceeding it.
plans-
They're exceeding it by 6 feet 6 inches. The length of the deck as seen from Mill Street.
Right, so what the applicant is showing is a 6-foot setback from the property line to the edge of the new deck.
That's right.
And what would be allowed per the zoning code is 9 feet 6 inches.
So the actual length, not the encroachment, but the width of the deck.
Oh, I see, I see.
So,
I see.
and I'd be happy to provide you with that section of the code to clarify
No,
that.
I get it, I see now.
And
Right.
yeah, just so you're aware, I looked at this section of the code for a long time to evaluate this, and you know, this may be something that the Planning Commission may want to consider, you know, revising in the future.
Well,
this section of the code.
So what is the total, perpendicular to the property line, what is the total encroachment into the side yard setback for the new deck?
I believe it's let's see, 15. I believe it's 12 feet. Or no, excuse me. It's yeah, 12 feet.
For an attached accessory structure. I mean, because it's attached, it needs to conform to the building code, and so that's a 15-foot side yard setback, so it's,
Correct.
okay, so it's a 5.5 foot, no, I'm sorry, it's a 9-foot excursion into the side yard setback.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That clarifies. Okay, thank you. My second question is the requirement that that staff has proposed that a deed restriction be recorded to prevent conversion of the barn to a secondary living unit without going through the proper channels. I'm curious why they're requiring it. You're proposing a deed restriction for the barn, but not for the shed. I mean, I imagine if it's any structure that needs to be, that somebody somewhere down the line wants to convert to a secondary living unit, they're going to have to go through whatever process they'd have to go through anyway. why is staff recommending that we record that in the deed specifically?
We'd be happy to include the shed as included in the deed restriction for conversion of a secondary dwelling unit, if that's a concern.
No, I mean, the shed's what, like 10 by 12 or something like that. I don't think anybody's going to want to live in there. I'm curious why is it being recorded in the deed specifically rather than not recorded at all? And, you know, because whether there's a deed restriction there or not, if 10 years from now somebody wants to convert that barn into a secondary living unit, they're going to have to go through the channels, you know, proper codes and make a separate application and go through that process. I don't understand the advantage of the deed restriction.
The purpose of recording the deed restriction would be for any future owner that if an illegal secondary dwelling unit is established within the barn, that any future owner would see that document recorded and give them an indication that the secondary dwelling unit was not legally established. And
I see. Okay. All right. I understand the logic. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's all I have for staff.
Yeah, Scott, I sent you a few questions. It seems to me that, you know, this house being right tucked in the corner and being it's going to be extensively redone, demolished almost. Was the applicant given an opportunity to, in effect, move the whole footprint of the house to the center of the lot, or were they, in effect, told that they have to keep the existing footprint?
The applicant had, you know, extensive discussions with staff on, you know, different ideas on the project, and it was the owner and applicant's request to move forward with the project as proposed tonight. So, and you know, maybe they can elaborate on the reasons why they've chosen this particular design, but at the end of the day, this is what they've chosen to do. So.
Okay, and we're being asked here to approve the project from an architectural standpoint, and then approve the project from the variance standpoint. Am I correct?
That's correct.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Scott, as I understand it, then there's two things that are triggering this variance request. One is a little bit of a change in the roof line, and the other is this deck is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
And then I notice in the report it talks about some conditions with putting in curb and gutters and driveway profiles, and there's no plans about that here, where that goes, what that looks like, and also there's no landscape plan with any of this. Aren't those normally required in our submittal packet?
So in an early phase of the project review, we route plans to several departments, one being Public Works. And the curb gutter and sidewalk is a requirement that Public Works has requested, and we've added that to, you know, as a condition of approval, that the applicant will submit those details with the building permit plan submittal, the details on the curb gutter and sidewalk. So.
And where the curb cut is going?
So just along the San Benito frontage, that'll tie into the existing sidewalk that's next door, mm-hmm. And the actually.
So that's all the questions I have right now. Yeah.
Okay, I don't have any questions for city staff, and I don't have any public. Does anybody have any comments? Yep. Does the applicant have any comments they'd like to make? If you could go up to the podium and press the little button there that says push until the green light comes on.
Speak up. Okay. So all we really want to do is take the existing structure without like moving it and causing excessive money to be spent just to move it a little bit. And so what we want to do is just take the existing structure. A lot of what we're doing on the outside is keeping it to look like the historical look that it has now. So even though we don't have to do that, we're still doing that because that's what my client would like to do. And we're also completely remodeling the inside, and with that, there's the back part of the roof is just, it's a flat part of the roof. It's not very aesthetically pleasing. And so to extend the roof line, it's the existing hip roof out more to the edge. It's basically all we're doing is removing the flat roof, and it's going to look much more aesthetically pleasing. It'll make Half Moon Bay look better when you're in that area of Half Moon Bay. And the deck, to me, it's just it's under 30 inches. It's not like a 2-story deck or nothing. It's low to the ground. It's actually, I think, less than 30 inches off the ground, or very close to that. And to my knowledge, it only goes into setback on the Mill Street side. And so that's pretty much all we're doing. It's, to me, pretty simple, but I know there's codes and everything, but that's pretty much what we want to do. So that's my only comments.
Great, thank you. So I have no, are there any other public comments on this? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close that and move to Planning Commission meeting discussion. Would like to get started.
No, it seems to me that from an architectural standpoint, if you take a look at the house, it's not going to change very much. Certainly the roof, maybe the overhang on Mill might look slightly different, but the shape of the house, etc., will not look very much. As far as the back deck, of course, that's not seen from the front. So, I mean, from an issue, the question is, I think if we want to grant the variance on the Mill Street side, then the deck would not be a big issue either. So I think that's the real question, at least in my mind, is we have enough findings to approve the variance on the Mill Street side, the fact that it's an irregular lot and so on. And I guess that's the issue that I'm raising. I have no problem with it, but obviously I'll listen to my fellow commissioners, see what issues they might raise on this.
I have no objections to it. The project as presented right now. I mean, ripping off that roof and putting on a new roof is going to make that addition look like it was part of the house originally. Right now, it's very obviously an addition. It's, you know, I have deep sympathy for houses that are located before lot lines and before setbacks, as I own one of them. So I understand you're kind of literally up against a wall. So I have no objections, and I'd be willing to make a motion to move this forward.
You're the owner. I'm sorry. I honestly can't believe that you have to get a variance for this roof change. The building's already there. It's disappointing you have to go through that whole process. With the deck, I don't think that it doesn't matter to me. Although you could move it a little bit and you wouldn't have to be getting a variance for this deck. I understand. So, yeah. Right, and this is not a forum that's the optimal forum to be discussing questions about design and things like that, although we're tasked with that in a public hearing like that, which is unfortunate for your project. It's just the first project I've seen where we've had to have a historic expert make some comment, and I'm curious about that and how that came about and how that profession actually exists. And since I have several clients that, including a building on Main Street, that I'd just like to know more about that. What triggered this? Have there been other projects that we've had to have a historic consultant?
Yes, certainly. So part of this is anytime a building that's proposed to be modified is over 50 years old, then that starts essentially the analysis on and whether or not the historic report would be required. And what drives it is the California Environmental Quality Act, that we want to make for certain that there wouldn't be any significant impact to a historic resource. Additionally, as you know, we do have a historic resource inventory at the town, at the city. So we want to make sure that it's not going to impact a historic resource that's on that inventory.
Right. So, like I said earlier, I'm disappointed that you had to go through this lengthy process for the remodeling that you're doing on this particular building, and its insignificance in terms of historic value. And I would just make a suggestion, you don't have to do it, but on that deck that's on the back, you might consider having that not just open the way it is, but maybe the siding material from the house extending back there so that it gives a little more grounding to it, but I wouldn't make that a condition, and I agree with my other commissioners that this seems no reason to not move this forward.
Yeah, I think this is a wonderful project, and you've taken time to make some wonderful improvements. Again, it's too bad you have to come here for a variance on it. The one observation I have from the color renderings is you might consider looking at the contrast between the roofing and the walls. It may make the house have a more harmonious feel with the rest of the neighborhood, but again, that's not something I'm going to attach to the condition of, I wouldn't want to attach to the condition of approval. It's just something worth considering, maybe having a darker roof. But do I have a motion then?
Sure, I move we approve PDP-16-013, an application for a coastal development permit, architectural review, and setback variance to allow the remodel of an existing single-family residence, including the expansion of the roof line within the street-facing side setback on a 18,197 square foot lot on 403 San Benito Street, located in the R1 B2 single-family residential zoning district and the residential medium-density general plan designation, APN 056-167-050, based upon the findings and evidence contained in Exhibit B of the draft resolution and subject to the conditions and approval contained in Exhibit B.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner DeBon,
Yes.
Commissioner Conroy,
Yes.
Commissioner Evans,
Yes.
and Commissioner Hernandez.
Yes.
Passes 4-0.
Okay. So now it's time for the big show. Again, I'll remind everybody, if you do have public comments that you'd like to make, please fill out one of the green cards in the back. We are going to ask folks to comply with a 3-minute limit. And if you do have comments that are repetitious or repeat what other people say, there's no need to say it over and over again. So that said, Carol, are you ready to get us started here?
Anybody else?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to call your attention to a memo that was placed at your, emailed to you earlier today and placed at your place tonight that provides responses to Commissioner questions regarding the appealability of this project to the Coastal Commission as a major public works project. This project is it includes improvements to the Half Moon Bay High School track and field facility. It requires a coastal development permit and architectural and site and design review. This project involves 2 public agencies. The city's role is to address and take action on the coastal development permit and the architectural and site and design review. And the Cabrillo Unified School District also has a role in the public process in that the district is the lead agency for CEQA review of the project and has prepared an environmental impact report on the document, on the project, excuse me. The school district began the process for the EIR with the preparation of a notice of preparation for the EIR, and that happened back in November of 2015. They circulated a draft EIR for the project for a 45-day review period in January of this year. The district responded to comments that they received on the draft EIR during the public review period. The district board certified the EIR on April 7th, 2016, And more recently, the board approved an addendum to the EIR that addressed minor changes in the project. The Planning Commission reviewed the draft EIR during the public review period and provided comments on the EIR that were transmitted to the school district, and the Planning Commission will use the final EIR in making its decision on the project. The site consists of the Half Moon Bay High School campus. The area of work is confined generally to the stadium, the track and field, and the areas surrounding it, immediately surrounding it, and as indicated on this slide. The existing conditions at the stadium include a rubberized track with and a field with artificial turf. Both are in poor condition. The stadium lacks field events. That means that the school is not able to host track meets and does not have field facilities for students to practice on the events that are absent. And the seating and access at the stadium facility are not ADA compliant, and the district is under a settlement agreement to address those issues. The proposed improvements seek to address some of these existing conditions. The project includes repair and restriping of the track. Includes replacing the existing artificial turf in the field with new artificial turf, and then restriping the field. It includes new field events that are missing, and enhancement of some events that are existing, as shown on this slide. And it includes a number of ADA compliant access and seating improvements. At the upper right-hand corner of this slide, you see the existing path that is coming down from the visitor parking area. There is a new ADA compliant loading area in the visitor parking area, and this path connects that parking area and loading area to the stadium facility. That path, as it continues on across the stadium, provides access to the upper bleachers, which are being replaced with ADA compliant bleachers. That path also provides access at the top of the stadium to the concession stand. And then there is a ramp that extends down across the slope and provides access to new ADA seating in the concrete bleachers at the bottom of the bleachers. That ramp extends to all the way to the track level, and it provides access to the relocated concession stand that's on the right side of the screen, to the far right in the shaded area. And then the track provides access to existing ADA compliant seating in the visitor bleachers on the west side of the field. And the district has indicated that when the track is in use for a track and field event, those bleachers will be closed and all of the spectators will sit on the home bleacher side. The proposed improvements also include a bioretention area, because the new impervious areas are sort of dispersed. All of the bioretention is being handled instead of at the site of each little additional area of impervious surface. It's all being consolidated in a bioretention area adjacent to the visitor parking lot, as seen in this slide. The project issues include general plan and local coastal program conformance, zoning compliance, land use compatibility, and CEQA mitigation. The project is, staff believes, in conformance with the local coastal program and the general plan. The school is a use that is allowed in the public facilities and institution general plan designation. The site is not located in a visual resource area or an environmentally sensitive habitat area. The minor changes that are proposed to the stadium will not significantly alter public views. And the existing trees that are around the perimeter of the site are proposed to be retained. And the project includes a coastal development permit, design review, and biological assessment consistent with the LCP policies. And in terms of zoning conformance, schools are permitted uses in the PS zoning district. The project complies with all of the setback requirements and other development standards of the PS district. The project includes a biological assessment that identifies mitigation for impacts on special status species as required in the zoning code. There are no project impacts on the environmentally sensitive habitat area that's located to the southwest of the site. The project conforms to the visual resource standards applicable to sites that are adjacent to visual resource areas. Those standards say that you shouldn't alter the natural terrain. In this particular case, the site was terraced some years ago, and so there is no natural terrain. The grading that will occur is to create the ramp will alter the site, but it's not altering anything that's natural form. There are no new structures that will extend above the ridgeline as viewed from Highway 1 or 92, and there are no billboards, and the trees are being retained. And staff believes that the project, as proposed, is compatible with adjacent uses. The site is surrounded on 3 sides by school facilities or vacant agricultural land, and the really only sensitive use or side is the northwest, where there are residences associated with the Highland Park neighborhood. The existing stadium, or the stadium is existing, and it includes a number of activities that have been ongoing for some years, a number of both school events, regular school activities, and community events. The project will result in a minor increase in the number of events. The school district says that it will result in 3 new events each year. 2 track meets and 1 invitational, and then it's possible in the future at some point the number of events could increase to as many as 10 additional. The EIR indicates that there's no significant increase in noise in the residential neighborhood as a result of the project. The existing setback and tree buffer is fairly impressive. It's a fairly wide setback and a fairly dense buffer along the residential property line, and that is to be retained. The setback will not be reduced, and the trees are not proposed to be removed. The project includes a number of mitigation measures that were identified in the EIR. These include standard construction mitigation for air quality, noise, cultural resources, and water quality impacts. And it also includes construction phase mitigation for sensitive species. These species include bats, monarch butterflies, the dusky-footed wood rat, and nesting birds. And though these species were not observed on the site and the habitat is fairly marginal, these provisions will ensure that there are no impacts if perchance those species are existing on the site at the time the construction occurs. This mitigation has been included in the project conditions, and a mitigation monitoring program is in your draft resolution for adoption by the Planning Commission. In order to approve the project, the commission will need to adopt findings regarding the project's significant environmental effects and the mitigation, and also regarding the alternatives that were addressed in the EIR. The EIR does not identify any significant unmitigated impacts, so there will be no need to adopt findings of overriding consideration. The draft findings are included in Exhibit A of the draft resolution. Staff concludes that the project is in conformance with the general plan and local coastal program, with the zoning code, that it's compatible with surrounding uses, and that it conforms to the requirements of the California Environmental Quality Act. And staff is recommending that Planning Commission approve the project based on the findings and conditions contained in the draft resolution. This concludes staff presentation.
Thank you, Carol. Are there any comments or questions for city staff?
Carol, just to put this project into context, I think I've asked you a few questions via email. Can you give us some background? How long has this field been there? And some background on the Highland Park subdivision, has it preceded the subdivision? Just to give some historical context on the field. Can you help provide that information?
Yes. Yes, thank you. The school district has indicated that the school was built in 1966 and that the track and field were in place at that time. I think it was a cinder track originally, not the nice cushy track that we have now. The Highland Park neighborhood, I'm not sure exactly when the subdivision was approved, but the homes were built, most of them in the 80s and 90s. There are some that were built in the last decade, but most of them were built in the 80s and 90s. And so both the school and the homes have been there for some time. However, the school's been there longer.
Thanks. Second question, this project, how does it change the footprint from the existing track? Is there any significant change in the footprint for this new project?
Basically, the improvements are within the confines of the existing stadium facility and the surrounding area. I mean, there's some improvements that are up at the upper campus, but generally it doesn't expand the size of the facility, the area of the facility.
Just to make sure I didn't miss it, I'm assuming that the field lighting is not being changed or expanded.
There's no proposal in this coastal development permit application to change the field lighting.
There were a number of comments raised about the lighting. Could you speak to the lighting and the enforcement action that I saw in the staff report?
Yes. We have received a complaint regarding that the lights were built without coastal development permit. We haven't found a record of a coastal development permit having been approved. And have been having discussions with the district on that issue, and are taking enforcement action, and will follow through on that issue in the future. It's not part of this application, and it is being addressed separate from this application.
And just so I understand, if we follow the normal course of actions, and maybe this might be better directed to Reed, but if we follow the normal course of actions with the enforcement action, what does that process look like? And is there something we can do tonight to maybe address that or take a look at that?
So first thing to talk about, or to point out, is that when you talk about a usual enforcement action, in this context or in a development context, let's take a single family home. You want to renovate your house. You come to the city, apply for permits. During that time, someone complains that you built a garage in your backyard without a permit. At the time that you come in and say, I want to renovate my house, the city would not grant you a permit to do so, usually unless you also had plans to legalize the structure in the back of your house. Now, the city can proceed with that action separately in a code enforcement matter, just like we would with somebody who has a fence in their backyard and they're not coming in to ask for any permissions to build anything else, but somebody's made a complaint, you go out there, you enforce the code through initially a compliance order. The city's already issued a compliance order, which is basically just a directive from the city saying, fix the problem, obtain the permit, and do so by the, there's a timeline set forth for them to obtain a permit. Ultimately, if that's not effective in obtaining compliance, the city would then have to proceed with other alternative enforcement mechanisms like an administrative citation or a civil lawsuit. Ultimately, those are more difficult. The entire process of code enforcement just takes time and resources. So when you have the opportunity to couple approvals of projects or permitting of projects with rectifying previous projects, it's a practice that's used at times. So at this point, it's kind of in the discretion of the city to decide how it wants to proceed. Does it want to separate those two actions? Does it want to hitch that wagon to that horse and make sure that they both move together? It's with the Planning Commission to decide.
So we have some discretion to help the school district move through this more efficiently with lower cost, potentially, from a compliance perspective. May not have to do an EIR or something like that.
I don't know that we can control whether they'll need to do an EIR or impact the costs of remedying the problem here, but we can, or the Planning Commission can, make a decision tonight that is lenient in the sense that it permits a broad time frame for resolution. I know that we have, I don't know if you've seen the compliance letter, but the timelines that are out there, we haven't heard back, at least I have not heard back from the district yet regarding that letter. John Dowdy, our Community Development Director, who's been spearheading that effort, might be able to speak more directly on that as to the status of things, but at this point in time, we don't know what is going to happen with that action.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay. So we'll move on. Does the applicant like to speak? Okay, great. So that said, I'll turn it over to public comment. If you would like to make a public comment, again, we have the green sheets in the back. The first green card I have is from Frank Lima. And make sure you press the green button when you get up there so the folks who are watching at home can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. My name is Frank Lima. I've been involved with the Half Moon Bay High School track and field program since 2006. First as a parent and then as an assistant coach, which I am now. During that time, in 2006, the track was renovated. My son came out of junior high school mostly as a distance runner and a long jumper. When he entered high school, he kind of grew into an allergy situation that caused him to have asthma pretty bad. That kind of forced his hand into the long jump. Unfortunately, in 2006, the existing long jump box was removed when the field was renovated. He went through 4 years and did not get a chance to do his event. Since then, we've had many kids attend the high school for whatever reason. They didn't take to running as much. Throws, field events, jumps. They've gone through 4 years of high school and not had the opportunity to really get a chance to do what they love doing. We've been dealing with this for a long time, and during that time, I'd say in 2006 we probably had 20 student athletes on our team. The track team doesn't have a cut policy. Anybody that wants to go out for track and compete, they get to do so. Unfortunately, this year we had over 90 kids sign up for track. We expect that number, we hope that number will increase to over 100 next year. Logistics tell me that we can't have 50 distance runners or 50 sprinters. Logistically, we can't enter that many kids in meets. We don't have enough lanes. Nobody has enough lanes to accommodate that amount of kids. So this project's really important for us. In order for us to accommodate anybody that wants to participate in track and field, if they pride themselves on throwing, they can do that. Jumping, hurdling. So much of that has been missing these past 10 years. And I think we've missed a lot of good performances from a lot of kids. It's a shame to see that all go by the wayside. But what I'd like to see is, I'd like to see this program or this project approved and get these kids the facility they deserve.
Thank you for your
That's
comments.
about it.
Gavin Tomberlin, followed by Carrie Burke. Okay. Carrie Burke, followed by Mark Rossoff.
Good evening, Carrie Burke, and happy Flag Day to everybody. I always liked Flag Day because it meant the beginning of summer, and it's wonderful to see all the athletes here tonight. And I was a student athlete, a high school athlete, but albeit over the hill, and spent many happy days in our stadium and went to other events. And here on the coast side, we have an abundance of beauty with the Pacific Ocean and open spaces, but we have a limited amount of built environment. And it really is an essential service and facility that we need for our youth. We don't have a lot of, we have a lot of activities, but they do have their limits here. So to keep our kids engaged and healthy outdoors, doing all the different kinds of events that can be accommodated in the stadium is just something we do owe our kids. So I support this project, and go Cougars.
Mark Rossoff, followed by Liza Crystal Demon.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mark Rossoff. I live at 683 Highland, the house that's right next to the baseball field. I'd like to speak in favor of this project. I think anything that enables our youth and students to participate in additional disciplines in track and field is a good thing for both our youth and for our community in general. So I urge you to approve the CDP. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
My name is Liza Crystal Deman. I have an incoming junior at Half Moon Bay High School who runs on both cross country and track, and then I have a younger son who will be coming up to the high school in a few years. And I want to speak in favor of the proposal. Couple of issues that were raised in the past had to do with noise and lights. One thing I wanted to point out is that track events are nearly always during the day. So there's not going to be any issue with the increased use of lights with track events. Related, the ability to actually host track events here at our high school is something that, as I think Frank pointed out, we haven't been able to do. When we are required to host events as a school, but when we host events, we have to physically host them at Terra Nova. So we coordinate and we do the logistics and our coaches take care of everything, but we can't do it at our home track. We have to go to Terra Nova to do that, and that's a shame. The other thing I would just point out is that track events are not football games. They don't have the same kind of crowd support and noise as the existing use that's already there. Although we as a community and as track and field parents support our kids, there's just not going to be an audience at most track events beyond parents. So I think that the the noise, the additional noise that would come with this is absolutely zero, none. The second thing I wanted to just talk about is the interest of our kids, and a couple of people have already said this. I'll just add a couple of things that haven't been said. I think the benefits of sports and organized sports for our kids on the coast cannot be overstated. Yes, Half Moon Bay High School has done a really good job over the last few years of improving academics, and we hope it continues to do that. But without the sports and the full range of sports to go with it, we're not doing our kids right. We're not doing it justice. The benefits that I've seen my kids get out of organized sports goes well beyond anything they get at home or in the classroom. Leadership, teamwork, organizing, all sorts of life skills that they simply can't get in a classroom, and it's just not fair to them that we not go forward with these renovations. So I'll just close by saying I think that with all of the Planning Commission work on this, the staff work on this, you've already done a great job of looking at the balance of interest, the interest of a few homeowners who moved in after the high school was already there, after the track was already there, balancing those minimal interests against the entire community and the entire school and the students and families who benefit from a renovated track. I just don't see how you can't vote in favor of this. The balance is so clearly in favor of the renovation. Thank you.
Jillian Davis, followed by Emma Hoffman. Jillian Davis, followed by Emma Hoffman. I see a future planning commissioner coming up.
All right. Hi, everybody. So I wasn't really planning on talking today, but when I came here, I thought, well, this is something that's been a huge part of my life for a really long time. This past season was my 7th year doing track and field. I've actually just graduated from the high school last week. I will be attending UC Santa Cruz in the fall. I will also be competing on their track team for discus and potentially javelin as well.
Green is good.
Okay. And they have a huge net that surrounds it, because when you're throwing it, it really could go in any direction and hurt someone severely if it hits them. And my team and I were down in Santa Barbara this past season, and they have a huge net to catch the disc if you throw it randomly in the wrong direction, which happens more than you'd think. And I just commented to the girls that I was competing with. There was about 12 other people that were also competing from various schools around California. And I go, oh, yeah, my school doesn't have a net. And they all turn and look at me and go, what? Are you guys crazy? Like, has someone been beheaded yet? And we go, no, not yet. So I think it's really important to have safe ways that our students can properly compete in their sports. And Half Moon Bay, our track team, my freshman year, there was probably about 40 people, and now there's 80. There was 80 during my senior year. And so it's grown a lot, and I expect it to grow a lot more. And so as we've grown, we've become more noticed in the track and field league. And I always get asked, why don't you guys host meets? And I have to tell them that we don't have the proper facilities. So they go, you guys don't have like a proper discus ring? I say, nope. No proper shot put? Nope. No proper high jump? No. No pole vault either, or proper lanes. And it's disappointing. And they always go, well, that's not fair. And it really isn't fair. And we do what we can, and my team works so hard, and I am so proud of them. But I think we can do a lot better if we had the proper facilities. And that's all.
Thank you for your comment. Emma Hoffman, followed by John Ullum.
Let's see. There we go. Hard act to follow. In the beginning, you said, please don't come up here and say anything that will embarrass your kids tomorrow morning, but I think you can see our kids are all here. And more importantly, we need to show them we care and we support them. I actually graduated from Half Moon Bay High School, ran track in 1988, and our track coach had us run through the unbuilt subdivision in Highland Park. So when you ask the question, when were the houses built, I graduated in '88 running track, and we were running through bare dirt that was just there. So I absolutely think this project is long overdue, and just as much as these teams at the high school put in as much hard work, we can see all of the hard work the staff has put together to get the project where it needs to be approved. I can only hope that the lighting issue concern will absolutely not derail that, because I have a feeling someone dug really hard to find out why 25 years ago lights were put in at the high school. So again, if it has to be two separate issues and we get that fixed through through our processes, then so be it. But this project is 2 years in the making, and from this room you can see how many people support it.
Thank you for your comment.
John Ullum. Working? John Ullum. Thanks for having me here. You know, the project's a great project. Hard to argue against it. The lights were installed in 1993 or 94? 95? Thank you. They were done without a CDP. The high school, when I first did the digging, someone mentioned some digging. Yeah, I did some digging. High school thought they were installed in the 70s. The way I was able to determine when they were installed is I went and looked at the Half Moon Bay Review and noticed that in 1995, football games started, home games started at 7 o'clock. Prior to that, they always started at 3. So the lights went in right then. Without a CDP, and people were living there when those lights went up. Now, if you go look at the lights on a weekend, on a night, you will see they do light up quite a bit more than just the football field. Not even the simplest steps have been taken to mitigate the light overflow and light pollution, and something we talked about with the library, light pollution. With just some basic installation of cones to redirect the light and to use the proper lighting that is available, this problem could be fixed. For some reason, the school board chose not to pursue fixing that. Now, there is a reason why we are here tonight, and that reason has to do with the ADA. The project was set up purposely to avoid ADA compliance. The project was done in such a way purposefully so as to avoid getting a CDP and avoid going through the DSA, so that it could specifically avoid ADA requirements. While digging on this issue, an email chain. On the 10th of July in 1913, Ed Watkins wrote an email to Tony Rourke. He had a meeting this morning with Steve Sutherland of SSA and Diane, I won't mention more names. One key question came up. Since this is primarily a repair, replacement, additional field elements aside, how do you feel about not processing with DSA or the City of Half Moon Bay for a CDP? This would obviously remove the issue of concern for ADA compliance for the visitor side of the field if we were to try this. Dave Lucier feels this could work. Mr. Rourke writes back, if Dave can sign off on it, then we should proceed. And Mr. Watkins assures him that Dave will sign out on it. Now, it's great that you all have these people here tonight supporting this project. There's nothing wrong with this project. I've been up to the turf. It's a horrible field. It's falling to pieces. But there is no one who's going to get this many people to come together because of ADA compliance issues. No one's going to speak for those people. No one's going to get upset. No one's going to write letters, demand anything. It's up to you guys, because the school itself is willing to find ways to work around the need for ADA compliance. That's what you're working with. And as for the lights, the city's attorney just explained it to you. If Joe Blow had something unpermitted in his backyard, the city, and every one of you, if that Joe Blow was in your backyard, would expect the city to do something about it before they allow Joe Blow to build something else. Then that's the truth. So take that into mind, that the only people who are going to make sure it's done right are you guys. The only people who are going to make sure that ADA laws are followed are people who care about people with disabilities. Not the school, not the sports boosters. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Naomi Patridge, followed by Stephanie Roberts.
Good evening. My name is Naomi Patridge, and I probably graduated from Half Moon Bay High School in 1958. And I'm still a Cougar, and I'm here to support the program. And I am really upset by Mr. Ullum's comments about the school district not concerned about ADA, which is full of baloney, because when we have done all the new additions, every ADA compliance has the softball field, at the soccer field, whatever new has been put in has been accommodated. Now, this field that was done at that time, there weren't ADA compliance. That has all come into new. And so, and I was here when they built those lights and put those lights in. And at that time, there was no city council that said you had to have a CDP. And I think people forget, when we became a city in 1959, we didn't get our LCP approved till way, way later. And we're still fighting about our LCP and our general plan. So a lot of the compliance issues and things are not the fault of everybody else, but we need to look at the city and the process that we've gone through. We're getting better at it, and things are getting better. But you can't condemn people when they were doing what they were told to do before. So I don't want to go back on that anymore, but I just think that what the school district has provided and what you have gone through, they have completed what they have done, and the ADA compliances are on that chart. They have not overlooked the ADA. I mean, staff just went over all the ADA conditions that they've done. So, Mr. Ullum, that's not true that they were not concerned. I don't care what you're talking about before, okay? It's what comes up now, what's been submitted to this group. So it's what you need to look at, what's been submitted to you, and they're on the papers. Thank you.
Hello there, good evening. My name is Stephanie Roberts. My husband is Ross Roberts. I'm the assistant coach with the Half Moon Bay track and cross country team, have been the assistant coach for the last 4 years. My husband is a scoutmaster for the local Boy Scout troop, otherwise known as also his business, the Gopher Guy. We've lived on the coast for the last 25 years. I am so moved by the community support here this evening for a project that Diane and I started 4 years ago. And I just first of all want to thank everybody for coming, parents, athletes, alumni, every sport. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Our son Ryan Roberts ran track and field for the high school all 4 years. And as you know, it's the only sport we can't host a local meet. We used to, but when we upgraded the field, I don't know exactly what happened. They ran out of money, but it it never got upgraded. So the field components weren't replaced. 4 years ago, Diane and I raised $35,000 to this project. We're so excited. It's going to happen. We need your support. Since then, the scope has expanded, which is great, to replace the turf and to other things, including, I think, an upgraded snack shack and a commentator booth. I just want to introduce Diane Pranich here. I want to introduce our great track and cross-country coach, Paul Farnsworth. As I think about it being the only sport that can't host local events, if you just closed your eyes for a minute and imagined a time where Half Moon Bay didn't have home football games, it just would never happen. It's part of our community. I want the same thing for track and field athletes whose parents, many of them, can't go over the hill to watch their son compete. These student athletes need scholarships to go to college. Track and field is an amazing, amazing opportunity for our student athletes as well. Lastly, I'm very saddened that a few families on the coast have had this much influence to derail a project that I started not 2 years ago. Sorry, we started not 2 years ago, 4 years ago, and we're not going away. It'll get done. It'll just take time, and I thank you for listening to all of the comments. We really, really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Alan O'Driscoll, followed by Juliet Coulda.
Good evening, Commissioners. Do we have any supporters here for this proposed project? Let me look around. People here are here for a reason. The time is long overdue to approve this project. I'm with the Boys and Girls Club. I'm with the Half Moon Bay Soccer Club. Other groups just in the high school make use of these facilities well. It's a community project. From a professional standpoint, I'm involved with a company called BAG Engineers. We do geotechnical studies and feasibility studies. I work with Scott Reeves from SSA and a number of design professionals who have gone through each and every project over and over and over. We've done individual studies, geotechnical studies for each and every feature. The baseball field, the softball field, the football/soccer field, the roller hockey rink, the amount of time and effort the school district has spent to get these items right. And like Naomi says, the standards of practice change over time, government changes, we all know that. But sitting before you right now, you have a compliant project in every way, and that's been echoed by your staff report. And I want to speak to something else now. It's personal for me and a lot of people that are here. We support the kids, obviously, but what I see is very sad is there's a 4-year cycle for kids to come up through the high school. And we study and delay and procrastinate and drag this thing out, and generation after generation, 4-year generations we're talking about, pass through this school district and miss the opportunity to pursue things that other communities have. It's time Half Moon Bay got up to speed. It's time we approve these projects, accept your own staff report, and let's get on with this project. Thank you very much.
Juliet.
Hi, good evening. Juliet Coulda. It's probably good I didn't bring all my kids tonight because I don't think they would have fit in the room. So it's nice to see a packed room of support here. And I just want to say I really hope we can look through, just get through these obstacles for this. I was very excited 4 years ago when Diane and the group that was putting this together it looked like this was happening, so it was really, really exciting. As you can see, sports mean a lot to this community. It is so great for these kids, and they're so good at them. It's so encouraging to see Half Moon Bay and so strong in sports. So I just hope we can give them everything and give them this opportunity. So I just want to say I'm in support. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. So we're going to close public comments now and move to discussion with planning commissioners. So for those of you watching, this is the part where we actually have to go through the process of evaluating the project based on its merits and make findings. So that's what we're doing here. For any of you who wish to be a planning commissioner, we have an open seat. John? John, do you have any comments?
I'd like to compliment the landscape team. Getting a ramp onto that facility is not easy. The slope requirements and the length of that ramp for the vertical distance you have to make up, it's really a great job. I'm probably not the right planning commissioner to be not in favor of youth sports, as everybody knows here. So, and it's my second opportunity to be involved with one of these projects as it comes through the planning commission. And I haven't found anything in here that's not compliant in any way with any of the ADA issues. Don't have expertise about the environmental stuff, but I'm going to stick my neck way out. I shouldn't do this, but since this is a volunteer position and all of you folks are sitting here, one of our exchange students, Monica, was on your track team this year. A lot of you know her. If you want to see that exchange program continue to flourish, get a hold of me about being a host family.
We've turned into a recruiting session here.
Can't resist. Very sorry.
Did you have any other comments about the project,
Right.
John? Okay. Tom?
I really appreciate everybody being here. It's really hot in here tonight.
I opened the door. I can't.
It would be nice if some of you folks showed up during our winter meetings, because the heat in this room is really inconsistent. No, thank you for your input, and thank you for your involvement, and I do hope, especially for the younger folks here, that your involvement doesn't start and stop with this meeting. You're involved in youth sports, that's great. You're part of a bigger community too, and civic engagement in activities like this is really great, and it's a way to further your involvement in your community. So I would love to see you here. You don't have to wear orange shirts next time, though. Looking through the project, I don't have any particular issues. I think the LSA, right? The folks, the LSA who did the EIR. I think they, their response to comments document was thorough, and I really appreciate the effort that staff put into transcribing and condensing the Planning Commission comments to a format that was easily digestible and easy to respond to. I think that at least the questions that I raised, I think, were adequately responded to when we first saw this back in February. So I thank staff and I thank the applicant for working to get those answers. I think the document, the environmental impact document, is stronger for it. And I don't have any further issues really, or any further comments on the merits of this project. But the issue of compliance for the lights, I think, is a legitimate concern. But I don't know the right method for this, for approaching this. I'm wondering if, as the city attorney said, we didn't see the compliance letter the city wrote, so I'm not entirely sure what their timeline is. From everything I understand, I don't think the school district really wants to do anything about the lights. That's just my gut feeling, because if they did, they would have done something by now. And it may be that we can force their hand a bit by requiring that prior to a granting of occupancy, that the applicant apply, not have approved, but apply for a retroactive CDP for the lights, which will not mean any action has to happen on the lights other than acknowledging that they are out of compliance. And I'd like to get staff's reaction to that as far as the level of direction that we have.
Thank you. John Dowdy, Community Development Director. What I will say, without getting into the details, is that your suggestion is more permissive than what staff is recommending with regard to its enforcement to this issue. We're understanding, we've had significant conversations with the superintendent and with Mr. Watkins. I would say that I will disagree on their behalf on the issue of their desire and willingness to work, I think, on the lighting issue. The issue is always from the district has been we want to look at whether we can retrofit the existing poles. We need to look at whether we can put the same types of lighting that are on the softball field, for example, to give the sharp cutoff. And part of this issue is just adequate time to assess and evaluate the project. And from our perspective in working through this has been trying to take this sort of a phase 1 and a phase 2 approach. Phase 1 being this piece of the project that's been languishing through a process and going through for whatever time frame you want to put to it. But certainly it is your call. We've made it clear that this is an option that could be placed on this. We do not have an occupancy review and an occupancy point on this because it's DSA. Right. So I would hesitate to go there. We don't issue a building permit. So our role is a very unique one in that this is really primarily the time that we have any say in what goes on and compliance as it relates to that. So that's part of the reason why we've been hesitant to attach to this. Certainly, we've talked about this, and your condition could be either, as you're suggesting, contingent upon certain actions, or just simply as a condition that says thou shalt obtain a permit and give some reasonable or specific date for that to occur, because we don't have control over that. So that would really be the preference if you're going to choose to place a condition on, that it just be by a specific date. What I'll say is our recommendation is that to have a permit issued before the end of this year, this calendar year, for the lighting. That was our recommendation and request. We had and we continue to be willing to discuss those options in the time frames to allow adequate time for the analysis. But from a starting point, that's what our request and directive was to begin that process, and let's address the issue. And I will say this, our local coastal plan was adopted in '93, so it was in place. It's at a point, the city may not have been issuing the local plans, but the coastal development permits were required. So the issue of yes or no or whatever really is not an issue, regardless of whether the city itself was issuing coastal development permits. Coastal development permit was required for this, so it's really a non-issue from staff's perspective of whether yes or no. But our interest, I think, is the same interest as yours, the same interest as the districts, and the same interest of the community. Let's resolve this issue once and for all. Let's give it its due, and proceed forward with processing a retroactive permit for this lighting structures.
Thank you both for reminding me that this is a DSA project. And I think your comment is well received, reminding everyone the flexible situation that happened between the city taking over issuance of coastal development permits and the Coastal Commission previously issuing all the coastal development permits. And it's really easy for people to prescribe nefarious causes to things when, you know, we're all out there just, most of us just trying to do our best for our community. So we have staff's thoughts. What about John and Les, your thoughts on the lights?
You know, I heard several comments early on that the lighting, they want to divorce that. And I've also heard comments in the audience that at least track meets, for the most part, will be during the day. I also heard that there is currently enforcement action by the city on the lights. To me, it seems that there is sufficient weight, at least from what the city is doing, that I think at this point we as Planning Commission do not need to get into that, and I don't think that it really adds to this project. I mean, your comment was file a permit for lights, but don't stop the project. I mean, it's so I mean, why in effect put anything attached to this project that is not already occurring?
Well, because they are out of compliance with an aspect of their site that is within our purview. I mean, I think it is the analogy that that Reed mentioned very early on, that if you built a garage without a permit and you come in to renovate your house, you're not going to get a permit to renovate your house until you fix your garage. I appreciate, I mean, I know the city wants to get this done. I believe the city fully. I think I think their target of having some resolution on this by the end of the year is admirable. I don't know what they can do beyond that, short of taking civil action or starting to pay lawyers bigger bucks to get this resolved. I think if we, as a planning commission, suggest to the school district that this is worth their attention, it may help move things along.
So what is your proposed motion or addition to the findings or the requirements?
I would actually move to be a little bit more lenient than the city. I would suggest that we add a motion that the applicant file for a retroactive CDP within 1 year of approval of this CDP, of our action tonight, which extends the negotiation time frame a little bit. I would encourage the school district to resolve it with all due haste, but that would be my recommendation.
John, do you have any comments?
So I'm a little confused on the issue because it sounds like the issue is something was done at one point in time without a particular permit. And I think there's other looming issue that is there some lighting solution that there are going to be some people that just don't like? And that there's maybe some, regardless of the technology and regardless of the glare cutoff and all that, it's going to be an ongoing squabble. And I don't think that's appropriate for us to get involved in as a planning commission.
Whether it's a CDP or not.
It's too bad that the energy that and the money that's spent on trying to retroactively change something can't just, that energy and money can't just be put to putting in better lights. You know, I mean, it'd be nice if we had a way to do that.
That's no, and I think that's exactly the point, right? Is that there are a number of folks who have raised legitimate issues about the lights, and the school, well, we certainly hear them, but this is not an interaction right now. The point is people have been asking the school district to get in compliance for years, and the school district has failed to act. And if this was an individual act, you know, an individual thing in itself, and we didn't have any challenges like this, then okay, well, maybe we'll work it out and it'll take a couple of years. But what I suspect is going to happen is people are going to get their lawyers involved, and the school district's going to waste money, and we're going to spend all the money on lawyers and not spend money getting the lights fixed. Whereas we have an opportunity now to put something in motion with a reasonable time frame, like a year, that would give the school district enough time to plan, not do this in a hasty manner, but give everybody some recourse that we know this is going to be addressed, and not waste all of our money on lawyers. Nobody wants that. So I actually think this is a really thoughtful approach. And again, if it was the first time we'd seen an issue with the school district not being in compliance, I'd be more lenient. But it seems like every project we have, I know you've come on recently, Superintendent, but almost every project we've had has had some compliance issue. And we've had to spend a lot of time, effort, and energy addressing those. And I know, you know, given that pattern, I'd like to actually see us take action, like the trees on Hatch, some of the other projects we've seen. I mean,
I don't think we want to be in trying to make any punitive action.
No.
You know, I don't think we're trying to right all wrongs perceived or actual. I think when we have an issue that has been in the public domain for years, and it is specific to these lights, which were installed without a coastal development permit, and whether the lights are replaced or refined or adjusted, no matter what happens, it's going to require a coastal development permit. And so my recommendation, and in fact, you know, I'm not going to, I don't even want to attach it to the overall approval. I move that the Planning Commission add a condition that requires the applicant to file for a retroactive CDP for the lights within 1 year from today.
Do I have a second?
We have discussion about that? Or?
Discussion about that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, is it possible, and I don't know if this is appropriate, could we hear, I'd be interested to hear from the school district if they're willing to talk about this.
No.
So my name is Jane Euster, and I'm the superintendent of Cabrillo Unified School District. And with the dismissal of school, I have just completed my first year and the great privilege of leading this district. I've heard of lots of things that have gone on for many, many, many years. And I have to say the same thing I say each time. My job is to solve things and move forward, not to dwell in the past. Whatever happened, happened. I can tell you that from early on when I arrived here, the light spill from the lights was one of the very first conversations that I had about what possibly could the district do within the confines of what we had. Please remember, we don't have infinite resources of money. Okay, we have one bond that's been issued for upgrading and handling our facilities. That bond is being used heavily in our elementary schools. There's a portion set aside for our high school. So it's a balancing act for us, right? We want to give the kids the very best that we have to give them. As far as I'm concerned, the lights are, they have to be there. That's our sports program. Okay, so what can be done within the bounds of what's reasonable? I mean, my worry is we go through a permit and we have to put 10 million in lighting. That can't happen. I don't have a budget to do that. I mean, these are just realities. This isn't whether, you know, we aren't oblivious to the environmental impacts. We aren't, I mean, we teach our students, many of whom are here tonight, environmental stewardship. We get it. But we have to function within confines of budget and with the confines of what we can do. And this track project, frankly, has tripled in cost since we started the process. That's neither here nor there. I mean, understand, and I understand process, and I understand that we go through it. But to imply that the district does not care is not correct. The district does care. To imply that the district is unwilling to do anything about it is not reasonable either. So we've been made aware of the situation, and we understand that we have to deal with the situation. The question is, how do we find a solution that allows us to continue the vital sports program? And by the way, the track and the field are not just used by Half Moon Bay High athletes. Almost all nights when I drive up to look around the high school at about 10:30, the neighborhood is down on that track. And they're running, and they're walking, and they're exercising, because we don't have a lot of areas here that you can do that. So that track serves way more than just the kids at Half Moon Bay High School. It serves this entire community, and we all know that. Just like my Cunha track also serves this community. And we're proud of that relationship with our community. The lights, when they went up at the time, yeah, they were state-of-the-art at the time. We get that time has passed. But the question is, how do we take care of and address this issue within budgetary amounts? And we're willing to talk about it. As I said, we're even investigating it, and we started to investigate it.
So I really appreciate the spirit of working with the community, and I was not trying to imply that you don't care. It's just we've had some challenges with projects. That's
Absolutely, I understand.
Trying to convey. We have in front of us two paths we can take. So one path is the city has already written an enforcement letter,
yep.
And then there's a compliance path we can go down. And then the second option is tonight, as a body, we can take action. And, you know, Tom has come up with a suggestion. I'd like to get your feedback on which, generally speaking, direction you'd like to go. If you want to go down the compliance path and deal with that separately with the city, or would you prefer to have us help address this now so we can go down a different path? It's not an easy answer. Maybe we can't answer it right now, but I'd like to get your feedback on which path you want to go down.
Well, so I think I have the worry that I actually would ask you is that it says, okay, you have to go in and apply for a CDP. Okay, what happens in the meantime? So a CDP has been going on here. This has been going on for several years. this track project, right? So what happens in the meantime? What happens to my lights?
Well, I think the requirement that you apply for the permit doesn't mean it's a constraint on moving forward with the rest of the project. It means, I mean, and I'll ask Reed to confirm, but what we're asking you to do here is to get the application submitted and acknowledge that you're out of compliance and have at least started the process. That would be my understanding. Tom or Reed?
Yep, Mr. Chair, maybe I can help out here a little bit. The two separate paths are one through the enforcement channel that is already currently underway, and then the other is whether or not the district is comfortable coupling the light issue with this project. So, and I think the chair is asking what the district's preference is. Would you prefer to pursue enforcement and the project in parallel tracks, or would you like them to go together in series?
I prefer them in parallel track.
Okay.
Because among other things, we have OCR that wants us in this project underway and is asking us, you know, why aren't you working on what we told you you need to work on? So we need the track to move, and we have compliance issues that we need to address.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, the intent of my suggested condition would have no bearing on the work on the track. It you know, this could be approved, and assuming it doesn't get appealed, it could go out for bid and construction can begin through its normal course of action. There's nothing beyond that. I mean, that was the intent. It was just that the city apply for a retroactive CDP, not that it be resolved, not that it come back before us before they can start construction. It's decoupled from all aspects of the project other than making it a condition of approval.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I understand what Commissioner Conroy is saying now, and that was different than what I just explained. So in other words, the project in theory would be approvable after the appeal period lapsed, and then it would be effective. Then the district could go forward with their improvements with the condition that within the year a application needs to be filed for the lights.
So do you want to move forward with your motion or retract?
My motion's on the table. You can die
Is there
without
no
a second.
Okay, so there's no second, so the motion dies.
Sure. Okay.
So
Then I will move that the Planning Commission approve PDP 074-14 for their CDP and architectural and site and design review for the improvements to the Half Moon Bay High School Stadium based upon the findings and evidence contained in Exhibits A, B, and C, and the conditions of approval contained in Exhibit D. And I think that covers our CEQA as well. Yeah.
do I have a, are we good, Bruce? Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Roll call?
Commissioner DeMond,
Yes.
Commissioner Conroy,
Yes.
Commissioner Evans, and Commissioner Hernandez.
Yes.
Vote passes 4-0.
Congratulations on the track.
Hey, Rick, 5 minutes to clear the room.
We'd like to take a 5-minute break, please. Can we get started again?
Thanks. Yeah.
Now the heavy lifting begins.
I have some air.
I can't believe they left when my item's up. Thank you, Chair and Commission members. We are here tonight to discuss the capital improvements program, and in particular, the
I'm sorry.
having troubles here.
If you can just talk through it.
Sure.
We've all read the
Great. So
documents,
we'll just roll with it here. I was trying to be helpful. In any event, we are in the process of moving forward with the 5-year capital improvement program for the city. We provided to you in your attachment 2 a spreadsheet showing, you see, a listing of all those projects from year 1 through 5, approximately 70 projects in that list. Tonight, we are asking for the Planning Commission's consideration to bless and find the list for capital projects for fiscal year 16-17 to be consistent with the general plan. This is one of those kind of unique issues and items that come up through the government code as to the role and responsibility of the Planning Commission. Forget it. Forget it. It was a good PowerPoint, but we're not going to see it tonight. So.
we can only imagine how.
You can only imagine how wonderful it was and
Please.
really great and all that.
So you were saying, though, our role as a planning commission with respect to the CIP and the role it plays in the general plan.
Sure, and that the government code obviously, I think, gives many roles and responsibilities and duties for the Planning Commission. One of those is to annually look at the coming year's capital projects and determine whether those projects are consistent with the general plan. I might take sort of the reverse position on that, which is to find that they are not inconsistent with the general plan, is in somewhat an easier way to approach this. But what we really are talking about is that when you look at the list of projects, first of all, there's not a project that is absolutely inconsistent with the general plan. For instance, if we were proposing the development of the Foothill Expressway or whatever that project was once called up around the high school and going in the upper area, you would be righteous and rightful in saying that that is inconsistent by proposing that in the CIP, because that is a project that is not consistent with and called for within the general plan itself.
It is. It is in the
Actually,
current general plan.
Within the LCP. How about we'll go LCP?
Sorry.
You know, I can never pick the right one. You know, you try, you try, and you try, but you can never pick the right one. I was just hit up last night at the Highway 1 project on the whole issue, so we're it'll be a hot issue as the GPAC comes around, I think, again. But in any event, you know, what we're looking at is and looking at that list, the projects there, and are they inconsistent with the general plan? For the most part, you're looking at the programs that are in the first section of that worksheet, particularly kind of the red, the pinkish, magenta, whatever you want to call it, that are really programmatic. They're the routine maintenance and efforts that the city has or should have been undertaking over the last many years. What this does, if you looked at last year's CIP and compared against that, what you would see is in last year's CIP, there were a number of specific projects that were kind of the maintenance for the sewers, for example, for the sewer mains. We combined and consolidated those into a routine maintenance for sewer mains, for instance. We've looked at also for the system, and then there's the special projects in there, which are the larger lift stations, for example. So that's how those were sort of broken out into those mandatory and ongoing programs. The next list, which is the green list, is really what I would focus on and what we would focus on in terms of looking at, are those projects consistent with the general plan. Those projects deal with several areas of interest: trails, parks, streets. Many of those are projects that have been identified throughout the years, and to some extent, finally, we're at a point financially where we can at least kick those down the road and sort of move on and start to work through those projects. For instance, if you look at the Highway 1, you're probably aware of the work that we've been doing, the neighborhood outreach, the community outreach. Last night was community meeting. And so those are high dollar projects. Those approximately $9.5 million or so built into that project is basically virtually no general fund or city funds in that. Those are grant funds and developer funds. So when you look at the $53 million, you're looking at it's in for that for fiscal year 16, 17, for example, and those are 5-year totals. Many of those are coming from non-city sources, and some of those are actually based on anticipated funding for projects, which may or may not come about. But for the most part, in 16, 17, those are anticipated to begin and commence, and many of those to be completed within the fiscal year point. I think critically to the issue of general plan consistency, and to some extent looking at implementation and moving the general plan forward, whether it's this one or ultimately a new general plan, this year proposes two, I think, significant master plan efforts: the Parks Master Plan and the PED, the Bike and Ped Trail, Bike and Ped Master Plan, which is basically looking at the trails and system in part, are two major kind of master plan efforts that are implementing and moving forward sort of the philosophy and strategic sort of policies and goals that the general plan puts out, but really to put those into a more formalized point of actual improvements, types of improvements, where those improvements should be, and at what standard and what level are those. So that's pretty significant, for instance. So there's a lot of projects. I'm not, like 34. I'm not going to go through each and every one of those. We can certainly talk about, answer any questions about them, and go from there. But this is just this falls into one of your statutory obligations and duties to review this and to provide the council your input as to whether you believe this is consistent with the general plan.
Well, I just...
Well, John gets his comment. Oh, go ahead.
Well, so I do have some questions, and the numbers here don't coincide with any of the numbering on the sheets here, so I kind of have to fumble around to find, I just have a few
Sure.
Little questions.
Sure.
So
I'm not gonna ruin it for you. I mean, obviously the issue of dollars are really the council's purview. This is really the types of projects, but
sure. So
I hope the numbers match up at some point.
Sure. These are just sort of questions for me to understand a little bit more. So on some of my pages, there's this yellow highlighting, and it doesn't seem to. Now, is that just somehow showed up on my copy here, or is there meaning to any of the?
There were. I apologize for that. There were some dangling highlights between finance and my staff and the community development staff in doing this. They mean nothing, except that there was that work was done on those by finance, and they were letting us know that they had made some changes to it. So okay. I apologize. We missed those.
Okay. Then on your number 6, the routine crosswalks and ADA retrofits, it talks about. I'm just curious about the mid-block crossing at Kelly Avenue.
Yes.
What is?
We're looking at between the gym and the Adcock Center.
Okay, that's what I thought that was. And then on number 7, the routine pavement managing and traffic safety program. there's engineering design of $975,000. What's the oversight and the scope of that work?
Apologize. Let me.
So it's there aren't page numbers. So it's you're number 7 in the red category, and it's routine pavement management and traffic safety program.
Okay. So if you look at, if that is, so the 975 is anticipated cost for Washington Boulevard and Ventura Boulevard projects, which are ongoing right now. So those are projects that are ongoing and will at this point definitely roll into July for completion, unfortunately because of winter weather and other design issues that arose late. What we're looking at for fiscal year 16-17 from the role and duties of the department and ultimately the city's deal is to actually take and design five streets and street segments to do the design work on those. And then you see the next year is the significant investment in the actual construction. So one of the changes and one of the issues that we found has been problematic is that in prior years there was an assumption that we could design, bid, and construct in a single year major projects, including major street construction. So we've tried to get a little more realistic and say, you know, we're going to take this coming fiscal year to design and bid and be able to the following year initiate the actual construction of the work and immediately when we are at summertime and have that. If we can move those up, then we can move some money around potentially and move it up earlier, but realistically, we're trying to be more realistic to the community about what they should expect in terms of timing for project delivery.
Sure, just so I understand. So where it says projected encumbered 2015-16, $975,000 in engineering and design. Is that a in-house?
The 975 is in the wrong spot.
Oh.
It was acknowledging an encumbrance, and frankly, these are going to be hidden. 975 is a combination, but primarily it's construction. But there's oversight, there's construction inspection, there's project management, and a little bit of design out of that. But this is primarily construction cost. It's in the wrong column. I apologize for that.
So then on your number 12, wayfinding and entry signs.
Okay.
It said the signage plan approved by the Planning Commission.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the front here has this picture of a gateway sign on Main Street, and I recall that we approved the wayfinding of the small signs and that the bigger signs were going to come back. And
you approved the entire package,
that's not my recollection.
That's not my recollection either. The
let me put it.
So I'm just,
yeah.
and these are just questions about
there's
how this
in
all
16-17 there is no archway included in what you're asking to find consistent with the general plan. We'll verify what the actions were on that.
The project
council, I believe, did approve the sign program, but at least blessed it. We're going to have to come back in that regard. We're going to have to come back with the plans. Those were done at a concept level, but we were trying to at least acknowledge that this had gone through a process and it wasn't just a.
And then your number 14, City Hall workspace.
Mm-hmm.
But then that doesn't have any design number in there. So and then with number 15, it does have a design number in there. And I guess
Difference being,
questioning
for
who
us,
does
you know,
it's just clarity. Who figures it out?
well,
Staff? Or?
when it's, in the end, this is not the critical piece. From the council's perspective, is the total amount of the project and the cost. We'll clarify that from the perspective there has been some design and that was done. This is primarily a modular office reconfiguration within the office, so it's not a significant amount of design that's in that. The other project, the annex, involves building and constructing hard offices, dropping ceiling for the old Curves building or the old post office, however you want to, current Curves old post office. So there is an architectural element to that and construction drawings that are required to deal with that. But we'll correct that. There is some expenditure in that for design on the City Hall workspace expansion.
And since we're not talking, so on the website upgrade seems way underfunded. That you're number 17.
We've actually awarded, or getting ready to award contract, and it's right on track.
And number then on number 25, the Main Street pavement repair project.
Mm-hmm.
So is the scope of work just repaving the Main
No,
Street?
it's not repaving. It's saw cutting the areas of problem, recompacting, putting in, that. What work was done out there today was done for an interim point for the parade that went through, and we didn't want folks falling down in the parade, so that was a temporary fix too.
And I guess the other two, I have number 28, number 34. I'm assuming there's some sort of effort on the Main Street Bridge and also the bike paths, that there's some coordination effort that goes with whatever the GPAC is trying to figure out, and overall long-range planning, or are these just sort of targeted projects we're going to do without a coordination with it?
Are we talking about the two master plans?
Well, there's the ones that I just looked at were the number 28, the Main Street Bridge, and then the bike and pedestrian master plan.
The Main Street Bridge has a Main Street Bridge Advisory Committee. The council has committed to moving forward. We're getting ready to submit a new application for a federal grant to move that. If we're not successful with that, then we'll come back and revise it. But that's a very distinct capital project. The other master plan work certainly will have some bearing with particularly the Parks and Rec Commission and this commission, I believe, more importantly than the GPAC itself.
Thanks. But that's a lot. We're being asked in just a couple of days to say, "Oh, this." But as I understand it, we're just saying the stuff you're talking about here is included in the general plan, and so that somebody else is making the decision whether or not to do them and how much to spend. Did I get
That's
that right?
the council's decision to do that. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So with the, I love budgets. This is where the rubber hits the road. Everybody, the dark secrets of city government, any project. I observe there's a lot of interesting and exciting projects in the future, and that's usually the case with most budgets. A lot of the interesting and exciting projects are sort of always put in the future, and they always will be. I'm struck by the things that are prioritized for this year. If I look at trails and parks as a total of the $53 million, the projects that begin in financial year 2016 through 2017, I think if I did my math correctly here, less than 2.5% of the city's budget is being spent on parks and trails. And under the current general plan, the city has way fewer parks than it should. I think we have a requirement of something like 7 acres of parks or 9 acres of parks, and we only have about 10% of the park space that we're required to have. So it just strikes me that when we talk about consistency with the current general plan, the allocation of resources seems a little off in terms of being consistent with the general plan, in my opinion. I mean, but again, I know there are a lot of really important projects here, but when you look at $53 million and less than 2.5% of the budget is being spent on parks and trails, and even with the new
Let's
general
put it in
plan.
context, though.
It's okay. I'm
23 million of that is the library alone, and that's a commitment. That's a project. But 23 million out of, and this is over a 5-year period as well. But
I understand. I'm raising the concern or the question, and I'd like to get your feedback on that.
Sure. I think that I think this CIP represents a significant reinvestment and commitment to both parks and trails. Not necessarily in the context of new construction, but maintaining them and enhancing the current conditions and current environment that we have. It's true we've had a conflicting policy of 8 acres per 1,000 from parks. We have now developed a fee around 5 acres per 1,000, but you can't use that money to catch up in your past. So those are those challenges and issues. When we look at state parks land and other parks land, I think you really get the realistic approach to how much land we have available to us, plus lands owned by Post, by Coastside Land Trust, and other trust agencies that are open space and some accessible. The numbers really are skewed if you look at only the developed active park areas with that. That being said, there's improvement that can be made, and one of the things that is proposed here is the Parks Master Plan. What we recommended to the council and why I think they suggested we do this is that without that Parks Master Plan, you're shooting in the dark about where you should be investing your money and building new parks. And so this provides that basis. So in years 2, 3, 4, 5, and on beyond that point, you can start to program in new park development where you want it and how you deal with it. So it's kind of the same with the trails and the master plan for ped and bike. There's been a lot of talk about parallel trails, about east-west access, a lot of different things. Again, without having a plan, it's hard to tell where we put that money and where we put that investment. So this is what sort of the first step is developing those plans, identifying those needs, identifying the cost of those, and then prioritizing from that point.
Okay, great. That's helpful. I mean, you need a plan before you start spending your money, and I do see a lot of projects for 2017 and 2018 that are sort of geared towards that. So that's helpful for framing things.
We acknowledge that planning and those plans are not necessarily the sexiest thing in the world. Everybody wants to. We all would like to build things and dig in the dirt, but they're a necessity.
I don't want you digging in the dirt until you have a plan, please.
We like to hear that.
The Poplar Beach Coastal Trail, the emergency erosion repair, does that affect the beach access on Poplar, or is that just for the trail on the bluff tops?
Well, certainly we're going to look at the beach access. At this point, we're not proposing any change or any modification to that, but certainly we need to take a look at what's happened with the erosion. What we will be doing in that initial work is surveying the top of bank, the bottom of the bluff, and looking at where we are, and to look at 2 things really. To look at how can we do some quick and retrofit work to the drainages that are creating a major problem there. The second part of that is to start to develop ideas around planned retreat and movement and relocation of the trail inland and away from the erosion and the issues occurring. And I think the council made, I think, a wise choice. If you look down the line, that's about a $1.4 million project or so to repave that stretch of of the trail. We think it makes a lot of sense. The council thought it made a lot of sense to defer on that $1.4 million investment until you figured out whether you wanted to relocate the trail, rather than relocating a trail you just went and spent 20 years worth of capital. I'm just saying those are the decision making that's going on, and why some people would look at that and say, why is that project pushed out into future years from the community? And we say, because we don't want to make that kind of investment and then rip it apart.
Got it. So thank you. The only other thing I observed is my understanding is that I think it's the Carnoustie property or Ocean Colony Partners has an obligation to build beach access near Redondo Beach, somewhere in that area. I don't see that on the project anywhere, and there's a limitation on when they actually have to execute that project, and if we don't get that built and put into the plan, then the obligation they have will expire. And so making the beaches accessible, somebody already has an obligation for that. I'd like to see that reflected in a budget somewhere where we'll just get your feedback.
So here's it actually didn't fall off the table. It was a conscious decision, and here's why. We've been working closely with Coastside Land Trust, who is working, received planning grant from the county Measure A monies to look at and extending the coastal trail from the terminus right now near from Seymour and through and all the way to Redondo. Part of that project and part of what their plan is to develop the trail that goes to that point, and they're already building into their project. And what we've been looking at is with the coastal development permit that will go with that project is that access point. And they're looking to do that as part of that project and the extension of the coastal trail and providing that vertical access. That's why it was not included, because it was part of another party's project that we didn't want to jump into. They have made some have had discussions and arrangements, and they're working on that project.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
John, compared to what we tried to look at last year, this graphically is way easier for me.
Thank you.
Whether or not I comprehend that arithmetic is a different issue.
We spent a lot of time and effort, but it's still a work in progress, and I apologize.
Big improvement. Big improvement from last year.
It's incremental improvement, and we kind of move it along and kick it along the path. So thank you. I appreciate your acknowledgement of that.
And I will also mention that there are many people in our community who founded ERP companies, who are product managers for ERP companies, who we should tap to help the city provide some resources in terms of getting your system up.
And I guarantee you the finance director would be more than happy to have any and all assistance.
And Volker, if your family's watching this, we're going to come get you. All right, so we need to have a motion here to, do you guys have any other comments? Okay. We need to adopt a resolution.
We're requesting a formal motion because that has to be done.
So you'd like us to adopt a formal resolution that the fiscal year 2016-2017 capital projects as contained in the city's 5-year capital improvement program are consistent with the city's general plan? Okay, so
I will second.
I think I'm not supposed to do that as the chair. Okay. Tom?
I move that we find the proposed 2016-2017 fiscal year CIP program consistent with the city's general plan.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
It's an indication of a long meeting.
Sorry about the microphones. Commissioner Damon?
Yes.
Commissioner Conroy?
Yes.
Commissioner Evans?
Yes.
And Commissioner Hernandez?
Yes, please.
Motion passes 4-0.
If I could just thank Paycon Abbasi in particular, who's over here, the city engineer, who came in March and jumped into this and provided invaluable assistance, and along with Ben on our staff who worked on a lot of this work. So thank you for that. Thank
Budgets
you.
are no fun, but they're extremely important, so thank you for your work, Peyton. We appreciate it. Are there any Planning Commission communications?
Correct me if I'm wrong, the 30th is when the next General Plan Advisory Committee meeting
GPAC,
is going to be. I am turning toward my GPAC member alternate because I will be
Out of the country.
in Europe.
Hmm.
Bless.
Excellent. And then, are there any updates on the charrette? Okay.
I move to adjourn.
All right. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll, vote? Aye?
Aye.
Unanimous.